Hey folks, and welcome to a daily rating special. On today's show, we'll sit down with Vincent Daly to get his thoughts on all 5 of the Ocean's movies. And don't worry, there's no spoilers. Vince will give a brief review, share some thoughts, and of course, then rate the films. The 5 Ocean's movies are Ocean's 11 from 1960 by Louis Milestone, Ocean's 11 from 2001 by Steven Soderbergh, Ocean's 12 and Ocean's 13 by Steven Soderbergh, and Ocean's 8, directed by Gary Ross. So stay tuned and enjoy the show. Mr. Vincent Daly, how's it going, buddy?
Tommy, boy, how's it going?
Oh, it's going well, man. I'm excited for this special. I've always been a big fan of the Ocean's movies.
Yeah, absolutely.
And yeah, I'm glad that we did this.
Yeah, it was just one of those series that, one, it wasn't all the ratings, first of all, so
none of them were, yeah.
Yeah, none of them. And these movies just have such style. Like it was just an easy watch to go through these, and also
they're 5.
fun. Yeah, it's 5. It's the slot. It's the bill.
And I don't know if people, I guess maybe most people know that there was a 1961 because it's based on a book.
Right.
And then you have the Rat Pack that did it. Mm-hmm. And then, of course, we have the Clooney ones, of course.
Yep.
And then the infamous Ocean's 8 as well.
Ocean's 8, yeah.
But I thought that I just like, I've always thought these movies were fun, and I know we just talked about it. What would be a good special? You know, folks, if you're picking up, we have kind of 2 different kinds of specials. We have series specials, which is what this is. Like we have the
Girl with the Dragon Tattoo.
We have the Girl with the Dragon Tattoo. We have
Star Trek.
Original Star Trek, and now we're doing this. And then we have other specials, which is like deep dive, kind of more essential films that we have. And these are just great, and they're fun.
Yeah, and enjoyable to watch all the way through. You know, it's almost in a very internet list type of enjoyment. It's fun kind of pitting these films against each other within their own franchise.
Yeah, you know? How does the story follow? It's also good to hear them, instead of doing one a week or something like that, now we just know the story continues throughout these.
Yep.
And we just know the deal. And
absolutely.
Like, how do they progress?
Yeah.
So it's going to be a good time. I'm glad that we did this special, and let's get started right there. But we're going back to 1960. We're going to start with the Rat Pack at Ocean's 11. I've never seen this one. How was it?
Yeah. So it is of course starting it all off. I would say just for all of these films, folks, plot summary wise, I'm not going to cover too much. Understand that it is always 11 plus thieves in each one, and they are pulling off one or multiple heists. You know, that really is every single setup.
Yeah, if you get down to the nitty gritty, that's spoilers because that's the whole movie.
Yeah, exactly. There's actually a great kind of screenplay study within this that I'll touch on in each film for the style of one big heist in storytelling. So I will say heist movies are among some of my favorite genres.
Oh, big time.
Yeah, animation-wise, Lupin the Third is a top 10 fave, and then film-wise, I would say just take a look at the must-watch section of the website. So.
Baby Driver.
Yeah, exactly. So this film, of course, is starring the Rat Pack and comprised of singers Frank Sinatra, Dean Martin, and Sammy Davis Jr. As much as I'm a fan of these guys as musicians and even comedically, I would say probably the roasts are going to be...
with Dean Martin, big time, yeah.
Absolutely.
And it's just he has variety show and everything,
yeah. Acting-wise, it's a little bit more rocky, I would say. Yeah, it's a little bit of a slow start here. It takes a while till we get anything we should care about. We are a solid halfway through before we get going on the plan itself, you know, the heisting and understanding the heist itself. It's a really big downside, and unfortunately the film kind of shows its age here. I think it really... I looked at this film, and I was watching this, and I was like, wow, does this ever feel like it's 1960 on the dot?
But not in a good way. Not in like a fun 60s way.
No, it's showing its age. Definitely, kind of harmed in its place in time for that. So when it comes to the tone of this film... I would say it's very rah-rah 50s. A big plot point is that Danny Ocean and the crew are all war buddies, even though, of we are watching thieves, and I think by wanting to watch this film, you're okay with watching thieves. You know?
Yeah.
It's really, the film is obsessed with kind of giving a moral stand-up guise to these thieves that we're watching, and in Danny Ocean's crew. There's a great example of this in an early bar rumble that some of the characters have, and the bar rumble happens because a patron is too rowdy, and they're like, "Hey, don't cause so much trouble," and that's why they get into the fight over it. It's like, it's super obsessed with trying to tell this almost like Robin Hood, like, yeah, they're thieves, yeah, they're breaking the law, but they're
moral.
Yeah, they're moral. They've been in war. They know how. They know camaraderie. It's very 50s for that reason.
Okay, all right.
And I think it's just a little bit too much of an obsession of the film. I mean, preference for a grittier story or not, part of the reason the front end of this movie is so slow is because it has this World War II vet flavor to it and these upbeat Robin Hood morals. I would say just be thieves. I mean, I think by the premise of this film, jump in and be thieves. I think we're all right with that.
Yeah, and not seeing this one, but the other ones, there's something there because in the main three that people really know, the modern day ones, they're thieves, but they are super cool and suave. A lot of them, like the two main characters, like they are cool, and that alone you have that in the Rat Pack. So there's no, I would say. There's no reason to do more than that.
Exactly.
They're already cool.
I know.
And then there's cool thieves.
Yeah. It almost made
swagger.
me wonder if, like, not the PR, but almost some sort of marketing was incorporated in this to kind of shake some of the mafioso allegations to Sinatra and friends. You know what I mean? It's like, they needed to tie it. I mean, there's already this Vegas type of feel to the Rat Pack, that's a little bit slimy, a little slick, and that's fine. Lean into it. So,
they bleed Vegas, and this takes place primarily in Vegas already,
absolutely,
right?
Absolutely. A very different Vegas than any point other in the series, but for that reason, very interesting as well. Mm-hmm. So I just think, again, a preference for a grittier story or not, because you're going to, obviously, this is 1960 on the dot, you are going to get a different type of written movie here.
Right.
I think it shoots itself in the foot pacing. That's where the critical, concern is from me, that it's
over 2 hours.
So concerned with saying, hey, these guys are thieves, but it's okay. They got more.
They're cool. Yeah, they're cool.
Yeah. Stand up. I would say a highlight here is comedy and musical performance, which is completely off the radar when we get later on into this franchise. The comedy here is basically just like slick guy talk, which is awesome. I
feel like Dino would be great for that.
For sure. I think it's either Dean or someone else. They have a great line. He says, I'm going to buy a brand new Chris Craft boat and never have it touch the water. Just be in my driveway. And it's like, that's the best joke ever written, maybe. I love that. That's so good.
That's really good.
And then also the handful of music elements are really great here. And I think it's so great because it leans into the strength of the Rat Pack.
Yeah.
Dean Martin is just always next to a piano in this film. There's just always a piano within 30 feet of him, and he's always just,
it's like Brad Pitt eating. This is Dean Martin with the piano.
It is so true. And I guess technically Dean Martin would be in Brad Pitt's spot.
Yeah, I think the naming of the characters are different, but I believe that's how it would work. Because Danny Ocean is Sinatra, of course.
Yes. And it really, as we move into the later franchise, Danny Ocean just has the name and then the premise of these, Ocean's 11 Thieves.
Yeah.
That's really the only connective tissue between this then.
Right.
So, but man, I mean, Dean Martin is clocking this up quite a bit because again, he's just always near a piano. He's always singing. He's always drunk. I love it. It's so good. As we will touch on many times with these movies for the special folks, let's finish talking about the heist itself. I think it's okay here. It's very reliant on a simple gimmick of just cutting the lights, which is just a bit too simple for its own good. Ironically, actually, almost every other film in some way gives nods to this, which is cool. Mm-hmm. Which is especially as we see in Ocean's 11 coming and not being a remake, but a reimagining of sorts.
Yeah.
The issue is that it just lacks conflict. There isn't much adversity the crew goes against here. It is very straightforward. There's not really twists and turns to the heist, which, screenplay writing wise, you need beats of conflict within it. Everything just goes a little bit too smoothly. That is not a factor even with any other entry of the series.
Yeah, you want those spots where it's supposed to be fun, but like you're sitting on the edge of your seat a little bit. There needs to be some sort of tension, or at least
there's got to be something to keep us hooked and engaged. Yeah. Otherwise, if it's without that conflict, it's missing.
Is it kind of like buddies or robbing? It's like buddies are robbing a place, and there's no real big stakes, or you're never really in fear for them or the plot. Basically,
I think a lot of what comes to mind with this film in particular, but could be really the whole franchise, is kind of Tarantino's approach to a hangout film. We're just kind of there with the characters in a certain sense, and there's a loose thread in between. I just think what lacks there is it just does not engage the audience where it should be at its most exciting during the heist. Oddly enough, it was kind of almost at its most predictable, well, certainly at its most predictable, but also a little bit of its most boring during the heist, which was odd.
Is that what you want?
Yeah. Things are just far too easy, and to build up to that one big heist writing, that screenplay or that storytelling of one big heist buildup in the script, I would say you definitely need something to twist the knife a little bit in the story to keep us engaged. Otherwise, we're done at planning stage, and you could just wrap up and say, "Hey," and it went to plan. That's it.
That's a good point to make. Yeah, it's a little too easy.
Yeah. We need that salt and pepper to it, or we need at least one good twist and turn during it.
Yeah, we had the characters that face, like you said, adversity. Had something happen where it's just like, oh, was he going to get caught?
Exactly.
That type of deal, yeah.
Exactly. There's maybe some kind of just enjoyment seeing these guys succeed. Again, that maybe even plays into, this Robin Hood aspect to the film. But yeah, I definitely, that's what I think holds this film back and plays, if anything, into this very dated approach to how the story is told and feels of the time, in a bad way, unfortunately. So, overall, I would say a flawed movie, a little bit too slow for its own good, but by no means a bad movie. And like I said, for what it's worth, almost every film in this franchise nods to it in some way, even as late as Ocean's 8. We're going to go ahead and give Ocean's 11, 1960, a 57.
Hey, 57, that's not a bad score.
It's not terrible.
I like that it's there.
I think it's also kind of a harmless score for, if you like the Rat Pack, guess what? It's more contact.
Yeah, it's kind of cool.
Pack.
Yeah, if you have an itch to scratch almost with that.
Right,
when you want that nostalgia kind of.
If you want to see Dean play piano in almost every scene, that's where you watch this one.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
All right, so Ocean's 11, 1960, 57. So we're going to jump up. We're now in 2001, was never done until this time.
Yep.
And this is Steven Soderbergh, who seems to really like films like this. But Soderbergh in 2001, this is Ocean's 11, of course, with George Clooney as Danny Ocean now, and Brad Pitt as the number 2. And what do we get with this? 2001, this is now 21 years old, this film, which is crazy to think about.
Yeah. And in ways, this film very similarly shows some age, but not in a bad way. In a bad way. I wasn't kind of questioning how it tasted or anything like that. So,
right.
Where the other one, it was a little bit weird tone. This begins the Soderbergh trilogy, and for all purposes, the only connection to the original story is our main lead being called Danny Ocean.
Yeah.
But again, premise of thieves coming together and for one big heist is the kind of setup there.
Yep.
There is a much quicker setup here, briefing the audience within, I would say, the first 15 minutes on the heist itself. And it is just so much better writing for that reason. We know our goals, and every scene now progresses us closer to those goals,
Right.
Where in the first one, or the original, I would say, us not understanding the heist until halfway through shoots it in the foot.
That's not good.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So let us understand our characters' goals, and now it's about problem solving with the characters. And even if there's a scene just for style, as there is many with this franchise, just for like the fun or the comedy or spotlighting a specific team member, everything is still progressing us towards that final goal. The whole team is figuring out how to pull this heist off, and it engages us as an audience because it makes for a story you want to problem solve in as well. The heist, as it's pitched in that first 15 minutes, is near impossible. So guess what? How do we make the impossible possible? How do we pull it off? And I think think that's, again, just good screenwriting right there.
Yeah. There's a pacing to it and a fluidity of the film that's it's fun. It's fun to be in the film.
Oh yeah, for sure. I would say the soundtrack is a part of that fun and really cool as ice. It is filled with your favorite early 2000s kind of acid jazz, upbeat kind of scrambling mambo music. I make such a big note.
It captures Vegas pretty well.
Oh yeah,
and not I don't know,
Vegas for the time, and then also kind of like an immortalized Vegas as well.
Yeah,
you know?
not that, and again, not that it's Rat Pack all over the place, but it gives tasteful hints here. It drops little things here or there.
Exactly.
The main composer is David Holmes, and I think he's throughout all 3 films as well.
Yes.
And I think he's in other Soderberghs. Like he's definitely.
I can imagine. Yeah.
But boy, he hits it well.
Yeah. And I'll note plenty of times with this, especially for this trilogy, the soundtrack is so key to the feel of this film. I would say maybe the soundtrack is doing the most heavy lifting, more so than story, more so than performances. It is so key to the feel of the crew, the crew of the 11, and how they talk and how they interact as thieves. I mean, it is really, it's the whole thing.
And there's one thing, now you weren't, when you were watching it, we were like annoyed that it was so impactful.
No. If anything, again, because it's almost the most iconic part about this trilogy. And definitely when we get to Ocean's 8, the failure in it trying to copy that, I think it shows, if anything, it's doing all the heavy lifting in a good way.
Yeah, and just remembering, so especially with 11, just remembering back, there's a problem I have with modern day films. And a lot of this, some of the clips that I went back and watched for Elvis, actually, when Elvis came out, was the transition music or the constant background music. When people are talking, sometimes it's just straight up not necessary. More and more films today are doing it. I think it's an issue that it takes away, there's something where there's music that it's transitional, or there's something like what's on screen is like coming and going almost.
They want it snappy.
And
it's
when
a bridge.
when there's dialogue and you just have music going, I think I have the same problem with a film like Guillermo del Toro.
Yes.
I find the same thing with him. He has a lot of just boring ass music in the background, and it's my understanding when I've seen interviews of orchestrators and composers, they hate it too. They hate composing it. Like I was listening to this one guy, and he was like, "It's always in movies now." He goes, "I won't even listen to it a second time. I'll record it and it'll be done." He goes, "I won't even listen to it because it can't. It's got nothing to it." And so oftentimes, if you watch that same scene, take the music out, it's so much more impactful with the music out.
Yeah.
And what this movie does well, and it might just be because it's also 21 years old, but during the talking parts, it seems like it's good. It's just the dialogue. And then those moments with the transitions and things are happening because you're dealing with 11 different storylines at some point.
Oh, sure.
It's keeping it moving. Basically, this is a very long way of saying the music is in the movie when it should be, and it's not excess.
Yeah, and if anything, it declares, guess what? This is heist action. You know, I mean, when the music is playing, that's when we need to pay attention to the problem solving of our characters.
And like you said, it's not filler. It's not filler transitional music, or basic, I should say, because like you said, it sets the tone. It's very different per what's happening on the screen.
Yeah. There's definitely specific songs. I mean, I would call it a soundtrack versus a score, because it is artists of the time and kind of acid jazz and new mambo and stuff like that.
Yeah, it's soundtrack based.
But at the same time, it's even passing kind of the logic of it, because it's all on brand for the tone of it. And again, it's kind of almost the anthem of Danny Ocean's crew. You know what I mean? I don't really consider this style to be the anthem of the casinos or Vegas. It really is Danny Ocean specifically and his crew.
I agree with that completely. Not that it's not fitting for that Vegas vibe.
Acting breakdown, I think that's probably the best bridge I'm going to get, because again, there's a lot to juggle here. And how we'll break this down for some of these is just a very simple kind of good bad. Brad Pitt, the most eating scenes I've ever seen.
This started the meme, I think.
It really
Brad Pitt eating.
It birthed what Brad Pitt is, and just like.
It's so enjoyable
to watch. It's just chewing, it's just fast talking, chewing, but it's
so
also not gross. So I mean,
not at all.
Yeah. There's kind of credit there that it's not bad. So I would say I always enjoy seeing Bernie Mac. Rest in peace. I think he's great in this trilogy, and it was just enjoyable to see him because I think he adds oddly a good amount to the crew and personality of the crew.
For sure, yeah.
And I did not really expect it, but Casey Affleck is absolutely my favorite of the whole series.
Oh, really?
He's so good. I love it. Very dry, but very funny. On the bad side, Don Cheadle with the worst British accent I think I have ever heard here. Oh,
it's fun.
It's bad.
It's fun.
And a lot of this, folks, this is going to be spillover for the next two films as well, because if anything, the next two films are focused on giving us more time with the lives of the crew than even the heist itself sometimes. So that'll be kind of catch-all. I'm very sorry to say I do not think George Clooney is great in this. It's a shame because we're locking in with him for a trilogy here. He's just a little too tied up in the romance, and I think that's when this film, specifically the heist, gets hurt by some predictability.
Well, is that the acting or just the story of the character that they built that was poor?
Definitely both.
Okay.
I would say 50-50. It's tough because Danny Ocean is sold as the best thief on the block.
Right.
And it's just fundamentally not enjoyable to watch him get caught up in a romance plot, specifically for this one.
Right.
And it only the result of that, it only hurt his proficiency or his abilities as a thief to be the best thief on the block. So I think there's a conflict there, and on top of that, I don't think Clooney is a great actor, period. So
yeah, he's just kind of like a guy.
Yeah.
Just like a dude. Yeah. It's just Clooney playing Clooney.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So, like I said, not the best sign going into this trilogy, and there's a lot of spillover for praise and criticism for these actors into the other films. I gotta say though, specifically for this one, it's Clooney's entanglement with the romance of where it gets messy and where I kind of think it takes away from the cool. You know, this film is all about rule of cool. This whole trilogy is about rule of cool. Yeah. So seeing the abilities being cut from our main guy, I didn't find it that enjoyable. So let's talk about the heist. It has a lot of nods, actually, to the original movies, which is cool. Primarily tricks with shutting off the lights is a theme, but where it was used as a single punchline in the original film, it's now used through the heist multiple times, which is, again, the theme here with this Ocean's 11 of 2001. Just so much better writing. You know, you can tell that the writing is just so tuned in. This use, or I would say the repetition of lighting tricks is good writing because it builds our familiarity with the plot device, so it can be used to greater effect each time when we get the twists and turns within the heist. Which again, just hats off to taking that original concept and just
expanding.
Yeah, tenfold almost on every level. I think what doesn't work is the conflict and surprises within the script and plot. This is leagues better than the original film, but how we're engaged, and specifically when some of the twists and turns comes up, it feels a little bit inconsequential. It also feels a little bit too loose. A good example here is Clooney is out of the heist as a plot point, but then it's just like, and he's back in. It just didn't feel, sticky enough. It didn't feel, it didn't have a good hook to it. Like I said as well, the romance that is tied in here, it's clumsily tacked on to the main heist. And unfortunately, we're going to have to wait until probably Ocean's 13 until we're unburdened from a romance subplot in this whole franchise, Actually, Ocean's 13, I think, is the only one that really doesn't have a romance subplot to it.
Now, would you say, of course, it's almost like, okay, it's Hollywood, there's going to have to be a romance. Were you saying, when you were watching, you were like, well, they could have definitely done this differently?
Yes.
Okay.
And it's specifically in kind of the predictable, or I don't want to say manufactured, but it's in the predictable feel.
It's formulaic.
Of when this romance is causing the wheels on the cart to fall off.
Gotcha.
That's where I say that predictability is hurting it. Many times, right on cue, something goes wrong, and it's almost formulaic formulaic in its own style.
It's like too perfect.
Exactly.
Okay, yeah.
Where the critique on the first one, it was just too perfect without twists.
Right.
In this one, the twists feel too, right on time.
Right, they're there, which is better that
Yep,
they're there. But,
exactly.
But a little bit too neat.
Exactly.
Okay.
Exactly. Right when they're needed, where the twist should be messy by the nature
Sure,
of
okay.
it. Honestly, though, this film pulls off a very entertaining movie through this one big heist plot structure, and that wasn't something its predecessor could necessarily do. So I want to give a lot of credit there to, again, they took the format, the skeleton, if you will, of Ocean's 11, and just did such a phenomenal job bringing it to not only the modern day, but crafting this identity to itself. For a movie exclusively about razzle-dazzle, Ocean 11 pulls it off. We are going to give Ocean's 11 2001 a 77.
All right, 77. That's really good. And for that 77, would you say that, this definitely has, not that it has a big following, but a lot of people know this movie.
Sure.
And a lot of people do have fun with it. So it lives up to the hype, I would say.
Yes.
It lives up to the big, not that it's like the biggest movie, but it does have name recognition.
Yeah.
And rightfully so is what it seems like.
Rightfully so. I think where it maybe falls short from a must-watch for me is, again, these predictable aspects.
Yeah.
But at the same time, it is, again, for the style alone, a very good watch, and I think going to be, fitting the bill for anyone looking for that kind of slick, jazzy type of heist format there.
Yeah, and what's shocking, you know what? And I didn't think, I got a Tommy Two Shoes for this.
Oh,
because
he's throwing it out.
I honestly didn't think I was going to have one.
Okay.
But it's just like, I've always really actually liked this movie.
Sure.
And I don't know, I've watched it many, many, many times. I really love the music. And honestly, what I like about it, and what I think is done so poorly, is when you have a big cast like this, a cast like this, and the juggling act of you have to put some sort of spotlight on these characters, and how do you juggle that without being a jumbled mess, basically, or just like not good. This balances many, many characters.
Yeah.
'Cause it's not just 11. You have Andy Garcia in it as well, kind of as the villain in this. And everyone is balanced properly, where maybe Casey Affleck obviously is not in it as much as some of the other 11, but when he's in it, it's right.
Yes,
And I
absolutely.
think it's a juggling act that Soderbergh does really, really, really well. Even in when we did No Sudden Move or something like that.
Yep.
He's good at juggling a lot of characters. And so it just props to that as well. For me, very easily, this is Two Shoes, One of the Laces Tied.
Wow, look at that.
Yeah, definitely. And it's, I've always loved this movie. And you were aware of that.
Oh, for sure,
Yeah.
for sure. If anything, the reason why this was on the list was I have never really critically watched these films or seen a lot of them, period. So that was good, and kind of understanding that you were a fan of this.
Yeah, okay, fun movie. So we're going to keep it going. So that was 2001. 3 years later, 2004, we now have Ocean's 12. Steven Soderbergh is still directing it. And what do we get with this sequel, kind of?
So yeah, the sequel hook to get the gang back together is to basically flip the last heist on them. The casino bad guy is extorting them, and they start scoping up a new heist to basically pay him back, of sorts. We get into things quickly, which is definitely a plus, but I would say this film is is much more cartoonish. It's like a comic book version of Ocean's 11. It's very interesting. I would say primarily off the back, what hurts this kind of flipped around is that the roles of the crew, a trapezist, a casino connect, were specific for the last heist. And it comes off just fundamentally a little bit weaker when we're trying to fit the 11 into a new heist with hanging this kind of extortion above them. It's just a little bit tougher, and a lot of the crew, maybe specifically, those roles I mentioned, just kind of are twiddling their thumbs for a lot of the film in Ocean's 12.
That's a good way to put it, yeah.
Yeah. I would say right off the back, things are a lot more cartoonish and campy. The old villain is now a super villain. He has like more color coding, and it's very, I did not expect it at all. We have comic styled super thief in the story called the Night Fox. which is, I think, a welcome addition. I'm fine with it being more cartoony, but
Competition that you have heist competitions
yeah,
now.
And it's just a little bit whiplash because it goes from semi-real to, I don't know, very campy. It's and leaning into that. Even the scene where the villain lays out their motives, that's where this kind of cartoonish writing is coming to play. And it's a heist movie. It doesn't necessarily need to be the most serious, but I would say that's a good way to introduce this. I would say not a fan of some of the editing and transitions here. Not usually something I take my knives out on, but
especially since we almost praised it for 11.
Oh, for sure.
Like quick and choppy? What was the deal?
Just really, really dated spiral editing and screen wipes, and it's like
not in a good way.
No, Soderbergh. I can do that in Windows Movie Maker right now, and you could as well. When this came out, so
that's interesting.
Yeah.
So it was not fun.
Yeah, and I think you definitely see this being a bad probably from the production's perspective as well, because this is out of there for 13. It's just a little bit too.
I think they tried and it didn't work.
Yeah.
So they
if anything, it's very in line with this being more cartoony.
Yeah.
It's just I thought it was I saw it. I was just like, whoa, what's going on here? Who let this happen? I'm not gonna do much analysis on each character. It's just way too much. But I do think some characters are much weaker in this, kind of going in line with, certain members of the crew are twiddling their thumbs. But some characters are just taken in a weird direction. This is primarily targeted at Matt Damon, who I think is, for the whole run of this trilogy, my least favorite in the crew, actually.
Really? You don't find him funny?
No, I didn't.
What bothers you about him?
It's not bother. I just don't. It
kind of surprises me.
Yeah, he gets a little bit better. This one specifically, though, it feels like where is this character
They're
going?
making fun of him, right? Almost like he's still like
the rookie. There's definitely the boys' club aspect to all of these films that they're ribbing each other and whatnot. It's like. I don't know. Matt Damon's.
That's interesting.
I thought they were setting up for something else, in this film.
Okay.
But Matt Damon is just taking it in a weird direction.
Did you like the scene where they're meeting with like the Russian guy?
Yeah, that's what I mean. Like, it's just like he's too much of a rookie.
Okay, all right.
It's odd. A plus is Brad Pitt gets a much larger lead in this, including our romance slot as well. These segments allow us to see from the law's perspective, because Brad Pitt is screwing the cop, which kind of writes itself, You don't even have to try. Of course, Brad Pitt is screwing the cop. It's a new perspective for the series, because this, once again, is the only time that we're seeing behind the law on this. So, some stuff to distinguish itself. I think, unfortunately, weaker in the result. It's kind of trying to mix up the formula too much, and
like a little bit too much going on. You're a little stretched thin on all the storylines, kind of.
Exactly.
Okay, yeah.
And we actually see this in how the heist in this one, multiple heists are juggled as well. I think it's just weaker in execution. Like I said before, soundtrack is a big plus for me. I think it has grown with the campiness in this film and is a plus. And it's a very good thing because, again, I can't stress enough, this soundtrack really defines this trilogy. It defines the Ocean's movies directly. Much more than, I don't know, I can't even think of an example of just where the soundtrack is so key to its style and identity of the film.
And would you say that it's nice that, so you still have David Holmes, so it's so similar, but it is nice, it is different, like you said. Like, it's not rinse and repeat. It's not just
it's clocked up. It's definitely clocked up.
It's nice that there's separation there, at least.
Oh, for sure, for sure. And it's something I can't necessarily say of Ocean's 13, but again, I was happy that some of the campiness was clocked back in that film. Then let's go ahead and talk about the heist. So right off the back, events are told out of order. So right away, we have a very different story structure. This is actually the only one in the franchise, folks, that abandons the one big heist as a story theme. With it being the only one and kind of focusing on micro heists, I think it's a pitfall that almost every other film coming up recognized and said, it's cool, but it's weaker in execution because we're not as invested into the problem solving of the impossible of one big heist.
Well, when you have the one heist, all your eggs are in that basket.
Mm-hmm.
You care the most about it, and you have the most time on it. It's the most intense.
Yeah.
When you're split up, you can only care so much about each individual one instead of that big bang effect kind of that final.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Now, we do see a lot more time with the crew. I would say that's a plus because that's definitely what Ocean's 13 leads into it's now a full hangout movie with the crew.
Right.
And almost like doesn't care about the heist in some ways. But I would say that what the real problem is here is that what the crew is doing is not communicated well in the writing. There is just kind of scenes to look cool around the heist, and there's no real substance. I'll call this, we're going to cement a new syndrome. I'm going to call this vodka commercial syndrome. That they're just...
Ooh, do
you like
tell.
that?
Yeah, I get it, what you're saying.
Yeah.
Expand on it.
It reminds me of those like old Kettle One commercials that's just guys entering a room and like being like, yeah, you know?
Yeah, okay, yeah.
And that's kind of this
no
film
real
to a
depth.
yeah,
No
this-
real depth, but yeah.
and granted, that could be this whole trilogy if you look at it from like a really critical way, but specifically in 12, there's a lack of substance to that scenes just to look cool, and there's not problem solving, and maybe that ties into, again, it's weaker writing a little bit in that. I would say part of this is as well. The script it's just thief jive talk. Work with me here, thief. There's thief jive talk that they're just saying something that means something else throughout this entire franchise, even up until 8 and whatnot. In this one, it is overwhelming. It is basically they're just throwing out dummy phrases. What I mean by thief jive talk is they're throwing out dummy phrases in place of the planning of the heist to sound cool, first of all, also to obscure the information for characters in the world listening. What fails is that we're listening as well as the audience, and we don't know.
We don't know what's going on. Is this like there's a certain like heist trick where it's just like like an act of shutting down the lights or something.
Sure.
So we do a John Potato, right?
Yeah,
like
exactly.
that kind of thing. Yeah.
Perfect.
Like, yeah,
perfect.
We'll do that. All right.
Yeah, I have some. I think this was in the film. It's just like something like we need a squealing pig and the grease man's got to catch him or something. Like, you know what I mean?
Is it fun or no?
It's definitely present throughout the whole trilogy, but in this one, it is constant. I don't think there's a single.
It's cranked up too much.
Yeah, there's not a single plot piece around any heist that is explained in plain English, and it gives us a very like where the hell are we type of feel to the script. So I gotta say, I mean, unfortunately, this really shoots the whole heist angle in the foot because little heist or not, the point of getting us up to speed quickly on one big heist is that we problem solve with the characters. That's what's enjoyable there. You know, or at least we're seeing them in every action move closer towards the goal. With this, not only is it not one big goal, and we have that broken up, but as well, we have a very loose understanding as the audience of what the hell actually needs to be done to make the impossible possible. And I think that's where it, once again, kind of trips and falls over its own type of switch up. It's trying to switch things up, but it's just stumbling over it, which is, again, something that the whole franchise learns from, and we are one big heist as a story structure for the entire length of this.
All props to Soderbergh for that.
Yeah. I do want to give props to him trying to switch things up in his own franchise.
Right, yeah.
You know, no one's twisting his arm for it.
Hey, this doesn't work. The transitions don't work. All right, let's go back. You can tell. I mean, this is his baby. I mean, you can't say it's not. You know?
Exactly. He prevents the slippery slope from movie to movie.
Yeah.
So I would say, this jive talk, it's I don't care if it makes sense in the secret language. It's just used way too frequently, and our grasp on the stakes itself are immensely weaker. Worst of all, the ending is, I would say, not satisfying in the least. A 180 from the first one, where where Ocean's 11 was all about kind of getting a real razzle-dazzle ending. Like, we brought it home, you know, everyone gets what they want.
Oh, yeah, plays a classical song.
Exactly. Where this, it's just like, it's almost intentionally unsatisfying. So, overall, I think this movie has a lot of style to it. If anything, more so than the first, but has a lot of holes in it, and honestly, a great fringe case for the ratings that a movie just falls shy of a benchmark. We're going to go ahead and give Ocean's 12 a 59.
Ooh, 59.
Yeah.
Okay, I'm happy with that score.
Yeah.
I was afraid it was going to get closer to the 40s, but it's definitely like, it's still somewhat fun. Like, it's still okay. It's still a good time
and
to watch.
especially if you understand that it's trying to be more cartoony and campy.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Just go in, not expecting, I mean, again, or their villain is like a super villain.
Right.
In this. He has like a red ascot. It's like, what?
That should be up your alley. That should be right.
I know.
And I think I'm going to go ahead and assume that your suggestion would be like, hey, if you're going to sit down and watch one of these, like, don't go and jump around.
Oh, for
11
sure.
is great. Watch 11.
Yep.
If you're still into it, go ahead and do 12. Okay.
Yeah. And even in my description of the opening, the plot here is always 11 plus thieves and one big heist. You know what I mean? That's not rocket science. You can technically jump around anywhere.
Sure.
But I think this one, it maybe benefits from understanding the dynamic of the crew.
Knowing your characters more.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
One character, what do you think of Carl Reiner, too? Plays Saul, the older guy.
Oh, yeah, I liked him a lot. I like, actually, what's the older, there's two older gentlemen.
Ruben.
Yes,
he plays Ruben,
that's right,
by
that's
Elliot
right.
Gould. Yeah.
Yeah, both of those were good. I would say definitely higher standouts than...
He's such a character.
Yeah,
Ruben is such a character. Yeah.
Exactly.
That's awesome. Okay, so 59 for Ocean's 12. I like that score, actually.
Yeah, by no means, again, just like Ocean's 11, the first one, or original. Getting my wires crossed here. It's not a bad film. I just think has some hurdles to it. So
yeah. Okay, awesome. So that's 59 for 12. So we're going to move on. Again, it's 3 years ahead. I love the way they came out with it. 2001, 2004, and then 2007.
Oh, wow.
3 years apiece.
Yeah,
I love it. Very clean.
Yeah, absolutely.
Soderbergh at the helm, as we know. This is Ocean's 13. And what do we get with 13?
So our opening here is that a member of the team gets knocked on a bad business deal. The construction of one of the largest and one of the finest casinos ever created. And guess what? It's owned by Al Pacino himself. We'll get into Pacino a little bit. I would say our opening hook isn't super strong, but my praise here is that it gets us right into the planning and is the best of both worlds because it's much less cartoony than the second one. It's not the bad guy of the last movie is now the bad guy again.
Yeah.
It's a bad business deal. It's almost very realistic into this crew having money and what they would land into being in the criminal world.
Yeah, that's a very good way to put it. It brings it back down to earth a little bit.
Yeah.
And centers us more so just we're in Vegas again and we have ourselves a real storyline to go
Exactly.
off of.
Yeah. And once again, it's gets us into the action. Hell, the first 30 minutes is almost exclusively all plan talk, which is, again, enjoyable because once it's, I wouldn't even say once it's out of the way, because I do enjoy that plan talk, but...
Because the dialogue is good, right? You're happy with the writing in this one.
Oh, yeah. The drive talk is clocked back significantly.
Right,
I think
right.
the two lessons Soderbergh learns is editing and... Well, maybe three. Editing, tone, and
scale the
script.
story. Yeah. And
engage
focus,
the audience.
Yeah, and then focus more on that formula of
Absolutely.
sticking to one big heist kind of
one
deal.
big
Yeah.
heist, problem solved. There it is.
Yeah.
You can just follow it along so much better because not every other word is a dummy replacement for another word.
Right,
you know
right.
what I mean? I gotta give some credit to 12 in its excess of that, but it's just so much better. We can actually pay attention to what the hell is going on.
Yeah.
So as I said, we are back to one big heist in its writing, and honestly, for the better. Clearly, the strong suit of the franchise. George Clooney and crew are back at it again. Part of the reason why we have so many great spotlight scenes with the crew in this one, and is really what holds the hangout type of movie description for this, is that the pacing is slowed down, and it's really for the better, I would say.
Which is surprising.
Yeah,
Because so far the pacing is great in these.
Oh,
The pacing
absolutely.
isn't the problem.
Yeah.
And why is it better? It's slowed down. Why is it still good?
It's slowed down because the heist is, by the nature of this being the final in the trilogy, all the more impossible.
Right.
And again, the first 30 minutes is just talking about the plan itself. But I think in the execution, more than ever, it feels like the crew has lives outside the heist. This gets involved into plot elements of what they've been doing with money. It's the spotlights of the crew that are so great, and what I loved about this movie, even though the heist elements may be not as strong as Ocean 11, our time with the crew is top notch. I loved it. It really is the strongest in some ways. I would say, when it comes to the comedy, it plays out much more naturally and slower because of the pacing.
Okay.
It's really
like
funny.
Nothing's forced, you're saying? Like it's a little bit more casual?
We're just kind of like checking in, and we're almost like halfway into a joke by the time the scene starts, but it also works because it's like, again, the crew is just living, what I mean? They're actually friends with each other, and they're actually doing heists together.
Yeah.
And I think it's very successful in that. Clooney and Pitt have a great kind of slow conversations about nothing. Casey Affleck has the best running joke in the entire series about him starting a revolution in Mexico. It's so
You like
good.
it?
Oh my God. It was my favorite part.
I remember when I first watched it, I was just like, what is this? What's going on? And then it's like, oh, okay, I get it. It's kind of good.
Yeah. It's just so funny how it builds. And again, much slower, in the previous films. That'd be a once and done, but this film is confident because it knows you want to spend time with the crew. And guess what? It's going to play that out over a longer period because we want to be with the crew.
Yep.
So
absolutely.
I think it builds much better for that reason, and oddly, slower pacing I think helps that, specifically for comedy to it.
And so if we jump that, take it by character, where a lot of the characters were lacking more in 12 compared to 11. How are characters doing now compared to 12?
I think it's a 1-2 punch because of the lack of jive talk, or I should say just being able to pay attention to the actual plot points of the heist. And the slower pacing, we get more
focus and more.
There's just more time for us to see some of the crew that may not
like
have a formal role, but still has a play in some sort of scheme,
And now, like, Matt Damon is more competent. It's his third film now. Like, he's better in it.
Right. Okay. He's better. He definitely has a larger role, which I wasn't like super thrilled with. But, but there's just so much more real estate for all characters, and I think
and it's fun.
It is really good. When it comes to the situational humor, it just works so much better. And I think, again, oddly, it works better than the heist elements itself. There's no bullshit romance here, which is even more runtime. There's even more real estate to just focus on the boys. It's Ocean's 11. You know what I mean? You don't need it. So it's very enjoyable with that. And with that, why don't we talk about the heist itself?
Okay.
First hour and 15 minutes, it is all set up. The jobs within the jobs. And that's where, again, we have this real estate to just kind of hang out with the crew.
And everyone's got their shtick. Like, everyone's got their job.
Also, I'm just thinking of it now, there's also not a time constraint necessarily on it, on the plot. And again, it just gives us more time to the crew's figuring out the impossible. And guess what? We're there with them on it. So I love the edits here. Total 180 in comparison to Ocean's 12. Specifically, this film has a gimmick of a divided comic book panel look, but it's not just freeze frames or anything. We have very important information being communicated in each, but it's all rapid fire.
And it looks good, not wasting your time at all.
It's also only used once we get into that last 45 minutes where it is all meat. There's all killer, no filler. And it's just so well shot. I really, really enjoyed the razzle dazzle, the finale of this one. Be that it's the last 45 minutes, so it's a hell of a razzle dazzle. But,
it's a long ride, but
it's
fun.
It is. It's enjoyable for how fast paced it clocks it up now that we're in it. Actually, I will say certain scenes did have some fat to trim. Matt Damon remains my least favorite character.
Okay,
I think,
that's fine.
I think some of his social engineering stuff, I mean, I don't know. I just didn't find it that enjoyable.
Okay.
But maybe that's just down to the character preference.
Sure,
alone.
yeah.
I would say the downside where it comes with the heist is that the logic of pulling off the heist is definitely the weakest of the series, unfortunately. The actual heist has no way of working when you actually look at these plot points, whether you can understand them or not. Too many impossible casino rigs are just kind of falling into place, no questions asked.
Okay, sure.
Especially with the longer runtime or the longer planning phase. I would have liked them to kind of overcome it, or at least see us overcome it in the planning.
Sure.
Rather than kind of hand wave and then, they got it. You know what I mean? Luck paid off in some sort of way. I guess that's what you get.
I definitely like that, yeah.
With this being more of a comedy than a heist first. It's definitely comedy hangout
Yeah,
first.
it's not
before
drama heist. It's
Yeah.
a comedy heist.
Exactly.
Fun heist is really what it is. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. But things fall in place a little bit too quick and easy.
Yes.
Yeah.
And no questions asked. I mean, I'm fine with things falling into place. It's obviously got to go right for the guys.
Yeah.
But it's without explanation in some cases.
Okay, sure.
Especially around the rigging of elements in the casino. Very key to the heist. And that's where I say it's almost impossible because it's like, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
This many things falling into place just flat out
It's a
don't
lot,
make
yeah.
sense. Yeah. But I have to admit, I thought in ways it worked better than Ocean's 11, where twists and turns were predictable. In 13, all of the twists are so outlandish, it kind of serves the comedic setup to this film. As much as I would like to say that the movie as a whole is better than the first one, I can't exactly reward sloppier writing, which is really key here because, believe me, I'm into the heist element. I want the heist element.
Yeah.
But in just the same way with Ocean's 12, it kind of helps if you understand it through a different lens. This helps if you understand it as primarily a comedy and kind of a payoff, kind of a cathartic payoff that these are the characters you love. Guess what? We're hanging out with them. You know, it's gonna work out. You know, that's kind of all it is. And let me tell you, this crew is at its best. The film understands that the crew is the strength, and I got to be honest. I think the crew is what this whole franchise has been about.
Absolutely,
so,
yeah.
Internet rankings be damned, it is the best one. We're going to give Ocean's 13 a 78.
Are you serious?
Oh, yeah. I think it's the best one.
Oh, my God. I don't know. I'm not sad about it. You know,
Yeah.
I thought, I don't know. I agree with you that 3 is like, I don't know. People make maybe the most fun about it because they think it's the third one is going to be the worst one.
Yeah,
it is really good.
Yeah.
It is good. One thing we didn't really touch on that we should is Al Pacino. I think is great.
It's true.
Yeah,
Yeah,
I think I don't think it's.
I wanted maybe a little bit more of like a real freak out. You know,
Like a Pacino moment, kind of. Yeah.
I wanted heat. You know.
Okay, sure, yeah.
But he's still so great at this. And
I think he plays a great villain. And honestly, it gets the vibe. I don't know if they shot in a real casino or not, but the sets looked great. Like in the casino.
Yep.
It's supposed to be the newest, the best,
supposed
the
to be this
latest.
kind of semi-futuristic type of.
It's like awesome. It totally is viable.
Absolutely.
I can't believe it gets a 70.
I'm telling
shocked.
you, it is the best of the trilogy.
Unbelievable.
Yep. And again, it's
wow.
stressed enough. It is the best of the trilogy because what is the trilogy about? It is about the crew.
It is.
It's Ocean's
Yes.
11. It's about the 11 thieves. So this film kind of understanding that and giving more runtime dedicated to their lives, how they exist as characters, how they interact in the boys' club of it.
Yep.
I think it understands it better, and I think it comes out as really my favorite of the three.
Unbelievable.
It
makes me. Yeah, you must have been shocked.
I was shocked.
You were expecting what 50s? I'm sure.
Oh,
something
because the
like
internet
that.
hates this movie. But I think it
know
understands
why, yeah.
what the strengths are of the franchise so much better. Definitely better than 12.
I'm shocked. I really thought it would go 1, 3, and 2 as far as placement. Like
Sure.
11 would be the best,
Yeah.
and 3 would be
Yeah.
second best. That's shocking. And I mean, it's 1 point.
It's 1 point.
It's 1
Yes,
point
I think
difference.
they're almost identical.
Yes.
They both have a little bit of harm to it, but yeah.
And then just a quick note on the music. Just as
Same,
good,
yes.
same deal. I
Say-
do think personally, I think the music hits the best in 3.
Really? Yeah.
Yeah, because there's a few songs I just love.
Yeah, and there are
Yeah.
some actually callbacks, I believe, to the first as well, and in how, like you noted, actually classical music being used and whatnot.
Yeah.
So.
All right. Wow, 78.
I was shocked. I was
was
watching.
this was a pretty good special for you.
Yeah. I was watching this film. I was like, no way, it's better than that. Am I really going to be a contrarian and say Ocean's 13 is? But I'm telling you, I'll die on the sword.
And the reason why and I keep on saying the word fun, these are so much fun to watch.
Sure, yeah.
They just are.
Yeah.
They're fun. They're easy watchers, and they're just having a good time with the guys.
Exactly.
Yeah.
From that
And
perspective,
I don't-
even 12 is excusable for that.
And I don't
reason.
feel like it's a guy flick. I don't think this is
Fair.
like a bro film to invite people. Anyone can enjoy these movies.
Fair, yeah, absolutely.
Okay, so before our last film, we're just going to go ahead and we don't do donation segments or anything anything like that, but we do just want to remind people we're producer supported. It's a value for value model. Are you getting value from the special, from the normal podcast? Are you going to the site and checking it out? And, do you find yourself enjoying this? Are you finding it valuable? Well, if you could, go to thedailyratings.com, go to the donations tab, and send some value our way through monetary support, basically. It's subscriptions, it's one-time donations. Pick whatever number you want, whatever amount you feel is important to you or whatever value you're getting, you can send our way. And we appreciate it so much. It's what keeps this going. And it also gives you the credit, the real producer credit of being a producer of the Daily Ratings. And also, hey, if you have not much to give and we understand that, tell somebody about it. We can't thank you enough for propagating and getting the message out there for us. But that's how we roll. That's a value for value model. And we thank you so much for those of you who produce the Daily Ratings. Okay, so we've had 11, 11, 12, and 13.
Yep.
There was a big hiatus, 11-year hiatus, where we had nothing from Ocean's movies.
Really, 11? Wow.
It was always toyed. Yeah, we're in 2018, and the third Ocean's 13 was 2007. And, there was always talk of, is there going to be Ocean's 4? What are we going to do? Like, if it were to be done again, it has been toyed around a little bit. Yep. Clooney would be asked about it in interviews or such.
Oh, for sure.
But here we are. This is the all-female cast. This is Ocean's 8, presumably because if it does well, we have 8, 9, 10.
Sure. Also 8 thieves, so...
Yeah, but it's written that way.
Yeah.
It's so we could have 8, 9, 10.
Right.
If there's going to be the female trilogy.
Yeah.
So it's Ocean's 8. The director now is Gary Ross. Steven Soderbergh really doesn't have a hand anymore in it.
Yeah.
And how does this get glued together? Why do we have this? What is it?
Sure.
Are we in the world of Ocean still? Danny Ocean?
Oh, 100%. Yeah. If anything, this is a direct sequel to the trilogy, despite Soderbergh's trilogy coming to an end.
Yeah.
I have no idea what compelled the director of Seabiscuit to direct the femme version of this franchise, but the answer is most definitely money. That is the answer.
Yes.
So I think, honestly, this film in 2018, along with Ghostbusters 2016, point to the brief gender swap trend in Hollywood, which... I think we're mostly done with now. It was a kind of a flash in the pan, and mostly because of the quality of the film. Exactly, yeah.
Money talks,
Yeah, it definitely does. But I think when I point to the gender swap of this, I'm not going to be just needlessly criticizing the fact that we go from all boys to all girls.
Yeah.
Honestly, if anything, I think this is more appropriate of a gender swap than something like Ghostbusters 2016, because it really was an all-boys club. You know what I mean? There was a style in itself to that. So, nonetheless, I think I just want to get across that I'm not needlessly coming down, or my critiques are not coming down on this just because of that gender swap. I think it is fundamentally weaker, and oddly enough, for how much it ties itself to the original trilogy. I can't stress enough, this is in universe. You know what I mean?
Yes,
this is the Ocean's cinematic universe.
So far, it's doing much better than Marvel.
They'll do it. They will do it. Yeah. So Sandra Bullock is Danny Ocean's sister, Debbie Ocean. I kid you not. You couldn't do it. Couldn't come up with Debbie.
That's terrible.
Debbie Ocean.
That's bad.
The new crew's skin in the game is kind of a mix of Ocean's 11 and Ocean's 13. We have kind of a mix of revenge and also romance risking to derail the plan, and that's where the twist and also the hook kind of comes from here. Not terrible as far as that initial premise, but like I said, 100% a Soderbergh universe Ocean's film. We have special appearances from some of the old crew even in this, and obviously the constant referencing of Danny Ocean, and this is Debbie Ocean's sister.
Right, of course, yeah.
I think this is where this film is hurt so much. I would really rather if it just shook the baggage of the original trilogy.
Do your own thing.
Yeah. And I really don't think it would be half bad, because I think the pitfall that this film has by tying it to the original trilogy is that the nostalgia, if you will, of the original trilogy is semi-pointless, but it also invites its criticism as well being tied to that, because guess what? Now it is a comparison game of where does this fit among the original trilogy? Where's the ranking?
It's shoving it into your face when it really strategically should be trying to distance itself.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. And probably the worst thing you can do in a franchise is invite some sort of internet-esque ranking, clickbait article of which one is the best. If this separated itself from the original franchise, it wouldn't be inviting in that criticism and that comparison to, what is it attached at the hip to that original trilogy. I have to admit, though, after 3 films, I found myself missing Soderbergh's style. This film is much darker, much moody in its approach of cool. It is definitely cool, it's still running by the rule of cool and trying to make sure the crew is as slick as possible, but it's missing that, again, that iconic soundtrack that I would say identify, it is the identity of the Soderbergh trilogy. So I think it just feels a little bit more generic in its moodier and darker approach. Certainly feels much more late 2010s and 2018 specifically for that reason, where the original trilogy, not necessarily a bad thing that it felt like a time capsule to early 2000s. And if anything, again, like I said many a times, gave that identity to that trilogy.
Definitely.
So, but as far as tone, it could not be farther from those original movies. And like I said already, I just wish they did not attach it at all. My preference aside, you can feel the difference in more cookie cutter edits. This film is edited like any other fast-paced Sandra Bullock vehicle. Feels like The Heat. Feels like Lost City.
Just generic and
the
quick.
editing specifically.
Care wasn't taken into it. It wasn't anything special.
Yeah. Exactly. And it just feels very cookie cutter Hollywood.
Right.
Again, I'm not trying to really take my knives out. I mean, Seabiscuit's a fine film. But like I said, the romance is a repeat and a rewashing of Ocean's 11, where it is interwoven into the job. Honestly, copy and paste my critique here. I think it is just the same. Debbie Ocean's competency is hurt by a very predictable element of her best thief type of title is stripped away from her because the romance gets her to mess up.
Right.
You know what I mean? It is fundamentally not enjoyable seeing the best of the best not be the best of the best. And really, it's this copy and paste criticism of what it was in Ocean's 11.
Very true, yeah.
So, one last time, let's go ahead and talk about the job. Firmly in the one big heist format, the crew wants to rob the Met Gala, which... feels a bit on the nose for the femme swap of this, but whatever. I'm not going to get involved with that. I mean, did you really have to, tie it into fashion?
Right.
I feel like, again, the film almost invites criticism in that way, too.
Right.
So, a positive is we are, again, pre-crew being established. We're starting over. So, a positive is we are gathering that new crew together, which invites a lot of new intros and a lot of fun scenes. Awkwafina, oddly enough, is a standout here. I really loved her character in this, and I think she has kind of some of the best scenes in the whole film, being this kind of sleight of hand type of lifter or pickpocket to the crew. There's a heavy reliances as far as the heist itself on the gimmick of camera glasses, which gets real old for how often it's used. It also even feels a bit too simple for the franchise. I mean, I'm not saying there's brilliance in the almost fantasy cameras of button pin cameras that they just placed everywhere in the original trilogy, but camera glasses feels like 60s writing. It feels like,
Yeah.
It feels like 60s television
or
writing.
Spy, or generic spy. Yeah, something. Yeah.
And they're
that's interesting.
They're all wearing like horn-rimmed glasses, and it's just like, all right. But I mean, even if it's like fantasy technology, which very much the original trilogy dips into.
Right.
I just feel, again, it's just... I mean, I think any entry-level screenwriter can think of camera glasses to get our film up to speed or get our characters informed to what's going on the field.
It's laziness almost.
Yeah.
It comes across as lazy and not necessarily like, ooh, they did that. That's a good idea. It's just like, oh, of course, all right, camera glasses, sure.
Exactly. So the heist is split perfectly even between all members of the crew. It is like perfectly distributed, which I guess to some of my criticisms of earlier films is kind of a good thing. What is odd is that for the first time, we have a post-heist sequence.
Okay.
The last 30 minutes is dedicated to the investigation after the fact, which is new for the franchise, and I think a pitfall as well, because part of what's so good about these films being directed towards razzle-dazzle, it's about the big payoff of the one big heist,
Right.
is that we don't have to deal with the messy after effect of
you
law.
get it and you're out.
Yeah, you're in and you're out.
Yeah.
I think there's a serious reason why we never saw that done before. We hit
Well, you did, but you had more movies to expand upon it.
Right.
That's the whole premise of
yes.
12
absolutely.
in the beginning, yeah.
Absolutely, with the aftermath itself.
Yeah.
We hit the climax, and now we have to basically restart the tension.
Yeah.
And guess what? The tension is James Corden. Like, what?
That's so true.
Oh, my God.
It's so
What
true.
the barf. It's like not menacing at all.
No.
Like, I mean, you'd think you'd want just almost hell, lean into the femme perspective. Give like a misogynist asshole as the law.
How about
or
this?
something
You
like
know,
that.
it would be sure that.
Yeah.
Or how about do what Soderbergh did in Logan Lucky.
Oh, sure.
Or Lucky Logan.
Yeah,
Which-
Logan Lucky.
Logan Lucky, and he had Hilary Swank in it, and Hilary Swank did a great job as the agent that came in and tried to figure out what the hell happened here.
Exactly.
Much better than James Corden.
Yeah. Actually, that's a great example of him dealing with post-heist tension, and building it up again.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. 100%.
And like I said, folks, I'm really...
I'm laughing. Seabiscuit did the race and it was over.
This is one build-up.
Yeah.
You don't got to worry about it, Did the horse win or not? Like I said, folks, I'm really not knocking this film for something, because in just the same way that I'm with my contrarian pick of Ocean's 13 being the best, I'm not playing into the mindless internet hate of this is females, gender swap, and therefore bad. I think this film invites critique, invites baggage because of its tie to the original trilogy.
Yeah. Constant shooting itself in the foot.
Yeah. And because, if anything, that original trilogy is so defined by a strong identity, by playing it cool, by playing it a little bit more laid back, it feels weaker for that reason. And again, I can't stress, I'm not just throwing it out there because that's the status quo and people like to hate on these femme swaps. This film really is fundamentally weaker because it tries to do less and comes off just a little bit more blah for that reason. It invites the comparison to the core movies. And sadly, from that perspective, this is just a much weaker product because of that comparison. It's slower, it's less funny, it feels cookie cutter, and its quality was shown clear as day when watching them together in direct of the franchise. We are going to go ahead and give Ocean's 8 a 43.
43. Okay. Wow. I'm not surprised by that. I could have even saw it maybe being in the 30s or something like that. But I could almost bet the house that it was going to be under a 50.
Absolutely.
Definitely. I absolutely have a Tommy Two Shoes for this movie. And have been waiting weeks.
Oh, boy.
This I was prepared for. Not that it needs much thought, Vin. I am going to go more on the hate a little bit.
Okay. Hey, fair.
I
Dig
will
in.
have my knives out. They're out. Okay, so I'll try to condense as much as possible.
All right.
Because it's Ocean's 8, you know what I mean?
Sure, exactly.
For the femme swap thing, this movie was it's uninspiring. It's uninspiring. Like you said, the dialogue is not as good. The heist is okay. It's fine, but everything about it's not important. This movie was made for one specific reason, and because you have that, the movie itself, there's no way to really be good or great because the point isn't really what's in the film. The point is that the film was made, and that's why, you know what I mean.
It's a vehicle,
right. To the point of shooting itself in the foot. Okay, so we know what Ocean's 11 is. We have it. It's, it is a story of Ocean's. The guys going into it.
Slick heist. Yeah.
Great. Okay, hey, we need more female-led cast. We need female cast. Let's just do the gender swap thing. And it's like, okay, so what you're saying is, like, how is it going to be as good or better? These are characters that have been made and that we know these characters to be somebody. Cate Blanchett, who I love. This almost destroyed so much of my love for Cate Blanchett. First of all, her name is Lou. They gave her a guy name, and then they wanted her to be Brad Pitt.
Debbie and Lou.
They it was eye rolly and like honestly just like, oh my god, really?
Right.
They tried to make her so cool. They tried to make her a dude. They tried to make her Brad Pitt.
Oh, for sure. Yeah, she's very
she's
tomboyish the whole film. Yeah.
Right. And the thing is, it's just like, okay, well, is this going to be a movie with females? Because now you're just taking a female cast and you're making them like a one-to-one of the guy characters already. Make them unique of their own. There is no uniqueness to this film. Zero uniqueness. Sandra Bullock, I mean, with your comments of George Clooney, of how he's just like, all right, it's just George Clooney.
Right.
Now we have Sandra Bullock trying to act like George Clooney like that.
Which it wasn't worth acting like him in the first place.
Right, exactly. And now you're just having Sandra Bullock act like George Clooney. It's just like, it doesn't work doubly. And again, Cate Blanchett, like, make her a cool female character. Don't try to make her Brad Pitt because she's not Brad Pitt. And we have 3 films of Brad Pitt being Rusty.
To compare against.
Exactly.
Too. It's inviting the critique,
it's
basically.
So annoying. And that's the thing. It can't be as good or better. It's impossible because those characters were those characters.
Sure.
So you can't replace them as much as you want.
And it shouldn't try. You know, it really, you know, I mean, do its own thing.
I kept on commenting how fun it was to watch those first 3.
Yeah.
This I found annoying. I found annoying and insulting. It brings me back when Cate Blanchett was on, she was like doing the tour, you know, the press tour basically. And I think she was on Colbert. And Colbert just, simple question, it was towards the end of the interview and he said, why Ocean's 8? To which Cate Blanchett should be, well, hey, if we think the story's good and there's more to continue, you can imagine that we might have some more Oceans along the way. Something like that.
Right.
And her response was, to the question, why Ocean's 8? Cate Blanchett's was, because there's only 8 women in Hollywood. And it's like, okay, great, Kate.
Right.
Get your punch card out. Very good. Like your woke victim punch card.
Wow.
And that's
so
exactly
right,
what it
though.
was. And it's annoying. And it's just like, okay, really? Okay, I don't
Yeah.
see Scarlett Johansson. I don't see a daily ratings favorite of Frances McDormand in it.
Oh, sure,
like,
sure.
Don't do that,
Yeah,
okay?
yeah.
Like, be a professional.
Yeah.
And her character sucked, which is just like, it destroyed me.
You're destroying this film.
whole movie is a social justice punch card, and
Sure.
they got it out and it got punched.
I
and
think
that's
so.
the only thing that matters. You want good female leads, you want good female cast. It's like, hey, let's not actually dig into history where there's unbelievable stories that people don't actually know. Let's be inventive and go ahead and make our own awesome female characters.
Yeah.
Let's take what worked and let's go ahead and give people something no one was asking for. No one was asking for a female Oceans movie. And then they made it. You got your punch card done. And now look what happened. Where are the other ones being made? They're not.
Right.
Because
Yeah,
it's atrocious. It's terrible, you know, and it's not a good movie.
Yeah. And who was asking for the tale of Danny Ocean's sister? You know what I mean?
One.
It's
no
so
one.
like,
And if you want to do it,
Yeah.
and I would say like Atomic Blonde hit so much more, was so much better of like a John Wick one-off than this was of an Ocean's one-off.
sure,
almost.
as far as the
Atomic
femme
Blonde-
swap of it. Yeah, absolutely.
I mean, this was just shooting itself in the foot left and right, and quite frankly, and I don't know, am I being too internet trolly? I mean, this just it's bleeding it throughout the film, and you
Yeah.
understand my thing of just like, do you have to have the exact same 1-to-1 ratio of those characters? They tried to make Cate Blanchett a dude.
Yeah.
Her name is Lou, and they tried to make her Brad Pitt, and she wears leather jackets, she rides motorcycles, and it's just like, no.
Yeah.
Make Cate Blanchett is awesome and beautiful and can do any character, apparently, other than this. I mean, other than be Brad Pitt. So the whole,
Your favorite actress.
it was upsetting, you know, but that's what it was. And I'm not going to waste more time on it. But I would say that my biggest thing, you know what I've been struggling? I have been giving thought about this for like days because it's like with the 2 shoes rating, it's like, oh, he's going to give it no shoes? We've never done that before. Is he going to give it 1 shoe? What's that? And it's like,
shoeless?
is it good enough for 1 shoe? I don't know.
Shoeless
So
movie?
I would say thank God that the rules are extremely loose within the confines of the daily ratings or within the Tommy 2 shoes, which I like.
The sub.
Plain and simple Ocean's 8 for me gets a Tommy flip-flop.
Wow. New ground.
Yes, new ground because it's better. The movie functions as a film, so it can't be 0 shoes. This does not deserve. This movie is a flop, and it deserves a flip flop.
I love it.
That's the only thing. Because, yeah,
I definitely agree, especially as well as like it's a functioning film, it's a functioning heist movie at that as well, but it's so generic in its execution. You know, that's I think what illustrates even like in the 40s as well.
And but the thing is, you go and sit down and watch it. Like it's not in the theaters anymore.
Yeah.
Okay, you're gonna sit down and watch a fun movie, fun heist movie and stuff, and you got a gang together. You have 3 other better movies.
Yeah. Yeah,
with a better storyline than this.
Absolutely. Technically 4. Watch the Rat Pack.
Yeah. Anyway, I hope that wasn't too long.
No, and I totally agree with you, and I think it's a good perspective, especially because you are a fan of this and might have been paying attention and keyed into the press circuit of why this was coming about.
I think it's why it bothered me even more, because I'm such a fan of the original 3.
Absolutely.
And will you agree with me that no one was asking for this?
Oh, definitely not. Definitely not. And I think, again, it's just even in the elevator pitch, like, it's Danny Ocean's sister. That just sounds weak out of the gate, you know?
Dude, make it Julia Roberts.
Sure, yeah.
That
absolutely.
I would have actually liked a little bit more.
Yeah, absolutely. She's making her own crew, you know, she's had a little taste of the action.
Or it's just like...
Because they reference her in 13,
or my husband's screwed in this situation, like, I'm getting my gals to get, like, I'll take this one.
Absolutely.
Even that could have been better.
Yeah.
Anyway, all right, so... This was a great... I love this deep dive that we did. I love this special.
It was a fun time.
And I'm glad that you had nice surprises of Ocean's 13 being a 78. I mean,
yes, absolutely. Happy to be the contrarian with that one and say that it is the best, because I really do believe it's about the crew, and in some ways that can be a detriment, but for 13 it was right on. It was great. So
that's awesome, Vin. So is that pretty much it? You want to roll credits, or do you have any other last tidbits you want to throw in?
No, just really, folks at home, if you have any series that you're looking for a deep dive for, or if there's some sort of series special like this that we can cover. I mean, I've been a little bit all over the map as far as Girl with Dragon Tattoo and Star Trek in this.
I definitely like that. And we do have some in mind, definitely, that we know that we'll do in the future, and some big ones. And there might be even... a series special part 1, series special part 2, because we have some big stuff out there.
Absolutely. But hopefully these series specials, the idea is to dive into something to say, like with any rating, is it worth your time? Is this series worth your time? And I think, at least for 2 very solid entries in this one, it was worth your time. Give it a dive into, so...
Awesome, Vin. Vin, we thank you so much for all the movies that you watch already. Adding this to the list, we appreciate so much. For folks at home, we'll run it down one more time. We have the 1960 Ocean's 11 with a 57%, the 2001 Ocean's 11 with a 77, Ocean's 12 with a 59, Ocean's 13 with a 78, and Ocean's 8 with a 43%. Folks, we thank you so much for listening, and we'll see you next time on the Daily Ratings Podcast. If you enjoyed the podcast, if you would, give us a good rating, or tell a friend about us. If you're wondering if a film is worth a watch, or just like to see more movie ratings from Vince, be sure to stop by thedailyratings.com. We have our ever-expanding catalog of films. Also, if you found value in the podcast or our site, become a producer and go to the donations tab on thedailyratings.com. You can donate whatever amount of value you feel you received from us. You'll get a producer mention on the next podcast episode, too. We're looking to build this into something large and great, but also be independent from those corporate sponsors. So we greatly appreciate any support from you all. So thanks so much, and we'll see you next time on the Daily Ratings Podcast.